The Lateness of the Hour was the first of 6 episodes shot on videotape instead of film in an attempt to cut costs. As I mentioned earlier in these reviews, while The Twilight Zone was getting a lot of recognition from critics and audiences, CBS had an issue with how much each episode was going over budget. Rod Serling took these concerns into consideration when crafting the stories by keeping the cast and locations to a minimum. But even that wasn't enough, and the experiment of shooting on videotape was implemented in the middle of this second season. Of course, these were aired out of order and staggered across late 1960 into 61, but 6 productions in a row were all recorded on tape for a jarringly different look. Not all of the episodes shot on video were bad, but with The Lateness of the Hour being the first attempt, the quality dip was noticeable in more than one aspect of production. Dr. Lauren and his wife live with their daughter Jana in a secluded house. The doctor has surrounded his family with robots that he built, who serve them as maids, butlers, etc. These very human-like machines meet their every need, which has resulted in Dr. and Mrs. Lauren becoming so dependent on them that they have isolated themselves from the outside world, never leaving or wanting for anything. Jana has seen the effect these robots have had on her parents and starts to question why they never venture outside, or at least why Jana herself isn't allowed to leave the property. She demands that her father dismantle the robots, but when he refuses, Jana threatens to leave. The Laurens plead with their daughter that no one in the outside world can care for her, and that she must remain with her loving parents. But when Jana brings up the prospect of living a full, natural life and giving them grandchildren, she starts to pick up on the fact that her parents have been hiding something. Jack Smite returned to direct this episode after his Season 1 classic, The Lonely. He helmed 4 episodes in total, with this one here and his final 2 being among the videotaped installments. I'm sure that was limiting for him, since he made such great use of the Death Valley location for his Season 1 production. But there is at least one more in the bunch that's still remembered quite fondly, and we'll get to that later this month. But The Lateness of the Hour does not meet that quality standard. In addition to Smite, most of the actors involved in this episode made other Twilight Zone appearances. This includes Mary Gregory, Doris Carnes, Jason Johnson, Irene Tedrow, and the well-known John Hoyt. The most prominent, though, is this story's lead, Inger Stevens. She very memorably appeared in one of the most haunting installments this show ever gave us in The Hitchhiker. Her portrayal of Nan Adams is one of the more indelible performances for a protagonist in the series. It's extremely unfortunate that, along with just about everything else in this episode, she doesn't come off well. It goes without saying that the tape recording of this episode makes it look cheap, especially when comparing it to episodes immediately before and after. But as a result of how this was produced, all the performances come across as overtly theatrical. The blocking is very clumsy too, and even Rod himself comes off awkward.
The residence of Dr. William Loren, which is in reality a menagerie for machines.
Since this had a more live performance feel, and I'm sure limited time with a smaller budget, Serling opted to read off cue cards, which really throws off the mystique of his on-screen presence. I'm sure he did this other times, but it's patently obvious here, and pulled me out of an already unusual episode. After at first refusing, Dr. Lauren gives in to his daughter's demands and dismantles his creations in hopes of keeping Jana home. Happy with her father's decision, Jana exclaims how free they can be now. She mentions meeting a man and eventually having children of her own, but the doctor and his wife start acting very strangely. Jana runs to the photo album and can't find a picture of herself as a little girl. A sense of dread fills her being as she figures out the shocking truth.
You made me. You built me. You manufactured me. You built a daughter!
Jana is another one of Lauren's robotic creations. He and his wife were childless, and thus they made Jana to fill that void. They do seem to truly love her like an offspring, but Jana is broken by this news. All of her memories were implanted by the doctor. Everything from childhood to the present. She can't accept this and is beside herself.
I'm a thing! I'm a machine! A machine!
We cut to later, where Mrs. Lauren is being massaged by her maid, as in the beginning of the episode. However...
Of course, Mrs. Lauren. Of course.
That reveal with the unsettling musical cue is still a shocking moment to me. Rod pulled off a double twist. The first is Jana discovering she's not human, but the twist of the knife for the audience is seeing that Dr. Lauren reprogrammed her as a maid to serve him and his wife. It's made so much worse by the Laurens reassuring Jana how much they truly loved her as a daughter just before that scene. This moment was very well foreshadowed in the opening sequence where Mrs. Lauren is incessantly moaning from her massage by Nelda, one of the original maids. It was to the point where Jana called her out on how obnoxious it was.
Don't make her do that anymore.
What is the matter with you?
Those constant animal grunts of pleasure.
They even renamed Jana Nelda in the final scene. In short, it's effed up. We rarely saw a character like Jana given such a horrifying ending in a Serling script, but maybe he set her up as not that great of a person by wanting the other robots dismantled. Dr. Lauren initially refuses because doing so would extinguish what he considers life. There is a scene where the original robots argue and plead with Lauren about not being destroyed.
I think you'll agree with me.
I came very well recommended, sir. There isn't a more efficient maid in the entire
I
country.
can fix anything that has to be fixed.
And I
can
no
fix
more!
anything.
Robert, you have your orders.
Jana also threw one of the robots down the stairs and took pleasure in their destruction after Lauren agrees to dismantle them.
All of you, rest in peace.
Even with all that, I don't think this character deserved the fate that she was stuck with. Finding out she was a robot all along was enough. Reprogramming her to be something that she hated after her parents claimed to truly love her was excessively cruel in my opinion. But outside of the video look, it's the only memorable aspect to this story. Despite, or maybe because of all my problems with it, I'm actually going to recommend this episode. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments, so let me know your opinion on the Lateness of the Hour. Is it notable enough for a full discussion, or should we leave it and its grim double twist in the Twilight Zone?